This audio combines somatic breathing with movement. When your nervous system becomes stressed, your fight or flight stress response kicks in. So this audio has been designed to dial down the stress response and release tension through your lower back, belly, and waist muscles, which are always affected when your nervous system becomes hypervigilant. So this audio will help to regulate your central nervous system. So when you're ready, could you lie on the floor with your legs extended out, your arms by your side, and could you close your eyes? And as you lie there on the floor, could you just scan from the back of your heels all the way through the back of your legs to your glutes, through to the small of your back, to your rib cage and shoulder blades, down into your arms. Notice how you're holding your hands. Are they clenched or are they open and relaxed? And then as you travel back along your arms to the sides of your neck and your head, just again notice how you're resting on the floor. And as you do, could you just notice, is there one area or just a couple of areas in particular that seem to create the deepest impression as you lie there on the floor? Where does your brain go to? Where does the attention seem to be at this point? Could you make a note of that? And at the end, we're going to see how things have shifted for you. So when you're ready, could you bend your legs so your feet are flat on the floor? And as you just lie there, could you just place your hands on top of your rib cage? And as you just place your hands on top of your rib cage, just breathe naturally. So don't do any big, deep breaths here. Just breathe naturally. I'd like you to notice with your hands sitting on your rib cage, what's the quality of your breath like? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is your breath rate shallow? Or do you feel that you're breathing quite deeply? And how much movement do you feel is coming from your rib cage as you breathe? And then from there, could you place your hands on top of your belly so your fingertips are touching as they rest on your belly? And again, as you breathe naturally, how much movement comes from your belly? How much is involved with your breath? As your hands rest on your belly, do you feel your fingertips separate and then meet again as you exhale? Or do you feel that your hands just stay still and there's very little movement coming from your belly? And then when you're ready, could you place your hands back on top of your rib cage? And now let's start to think how we can bring pandiculation, that 3-stage process, how we can bring that into your breathing. So with your hands sitting on your rib cage, could you first of all start with a nice deep inhale? So as you inhale, could you notice how your hands start to swing out with your rib cage? Could you then make a very slow, deliberate exhale? And at the end of your exhale, notice the silent pause before you inhale again. So just stay with this 3-step process as you inhale deeply, exhale slowly, and then notice that silent pause. So that silent pause and the exhale are deliberately dialing down the stress response in your nervous system. So take time to really savor this breathing technique. And as you continue to inhale, do you have more movement coming from your rib cage at this point? Let's just bring a little bit more stimulation to your brain. So keep that 3-step process happening with your breath. But could you now make your hands heavier on your rib cage? So the next time you inhale, your ribs have just got to work against a bit of resistance from your heavy hands. We want to wake up that part of your brain map. that talks to your muscles that sit between your ribs. And then as you exhale, could you allow your hands just to direct your ribs down towards your pelvis? So we're drawing your ribs down towards your pelvis, which means we start to just compress a little bit of the belly. And then with that silent pause, just let everything reset and just rest in neutral. Again, when you inhale, heavy hands on your ribs, creating that little bit of resistance there. As you exhale, notice how you guide your ribs down towards your pelvis. Can you feel that your chest and possibly your shoulders are starting to roll with this action, as if we're creating a little curl from your rib cage, bringing your chest and shoulders forward also. So just keep this breath going, this 3-step process. Take the heaviness out of your hands, but can you create and continue to cause that muscle memory action? So as you inhale, can you feel your ribs expand and swing out? As you exhale, can you feel them drawing down? And then notice that silent pause as everything just resumes to normal or neutral. And then taking your hands away from your rib cage and just placing them by your side, could you continue to allow your ribs to expand on the inhale, depress on the exhale? And then just breathe naturally here. Now, as you breathe naturally, we're going to start to just break down a movement through your pelvis, starting to release the tension that can build up around your lower back, your belly, and your hips. So on your next inhale, could you inhale and tip your tailbone towards the floor, creating a small arch in your back? And then with as many breaths as you want, slowly returning all the way back to your start position. And then when you get back to the start, could you take a nice inhale here in neutral? And with your exhale, what else can you fully release from your lower back? And again, when you're ready, could you inhale and tip your tailbone towards the floor? Notice as you do this, can you allow your belly to expand like a balloon? Notice how that then increases the contraction through your lower back. And then again, as many breaths as you want, can you slowly return everything back to the beginning? And again, take an extra breath here when you're in neutral and just let everything relax. And again, could you just continue with a few more of these movements in your own time? So as you inhale and arch, notice that in order to allow your belly to lengthen and release, there has to be a contraction in your lower back. So when one side contracts, the other side has to lengthen and release to make this happen. So this is how natural movement happens. This is what we're bringing back into your muscles, reminding your brain that when one side contracts, the other side lengthens and releases. And make sure we're just having that little extra bit of time in between just to let your back fully release in neutral. And make that the last of your arch as you slowly come all the way back to the beginning. And this time, we're going to go in the opposite direction. So to begin with, could you take an inhale to prepare in neutral? And then as you exhale, could you sink your belly, sink your ribs, draw your sternum or breastbone towards your pelvis. And at the same time, can you tuck your tailbone up towards your breastbone, noticing how we lengthen and release through your lower back as we tighten through your front. And then as many breaths as you want, can you soften your belly, soften your ribs, release deep down into the area of your pubic bone and come all the way back to neutral. And when you're back in neutral, could you stay here and just breathe deeply into your belly, expand it like a balloon. What else can you fully release from your belly? Again, let's do a few more here. So we inhale to prepare, and then as we exhale, remember, sink your belly, sink your ribs, draw your sternum and your tailbone towards each other. Can you feel your lower back releasing and lengthening into the floor? Notice the tightening through your front. Can you feel your chest and your shoulders are rolling with this pattern? And then as you breathe as many breaths as you want naturally, soften your belly. Soften between your ribs. Take some big deep breaths into your belly, into your chest. And let everything just rest. And again, let's just do one more here. So as you inhale, breathe into your belly, breathe into your chest. And then sink your belly, sink your ribs, draw your sternum and tailbone towards each other, lengthening through your back, contracting and tightening through your front. And then soften everything as you return all the way back to the start. When you get back to the start, let's now play and go between these two movements so your brain knows how to move in and out of these postures. So if you have one posture that seems to be the one that triggers when you're stressed, let's see how we can teach your brain how to create it and then decreate this stress pattern of tension. So when you're ready, could you inhale and arch, breathe into your belly, breathe into your ribs, into your chest. Could you allow your shoulders to press into the floor, creating that little arch in your back? And then as you exhale, can you sink your belly, sink your ribs, draw your tailbone up towards your breastbone as your breastbone moves towards your pubic bone. And again, let your shoulders and your chest roll forward. We're really hunching and rolling forward. And then as many breaths as you want, can you soften and come all the way back and let your brain notice where neutral truly is, where it's soft between the two extreme movements. Take an extra breath here. On that out breath, just let anything that you're still holding just fully release. Let it go. And then when you're ready, can we now move between the two? So we're going to inhale and arch. And then we're going to exhale and draw everything so we release through your back as we tighten through your front. So can you flow back and forth, creating that wave-like motion? And as you create that wave-like motion with your pelvis, don't over-effort. Keep it small and keep it subtle. It doesn't have to be a big movement. If anything's tiring, if anything's cramping or aching, can you make the movement slower? Can you make the movement smaller? This shouldn't be hard work. We're working your brain to muscle communication. So it's all about software update between your brain and muscle. It doesn't have to be a big movement. And as you continue with this, could you grow your movement? So as you inhale and arch, can you press both shoulders into the floor, allowing your chest to expand? Breathe into your chest. And then as you exhale and you sink your belly, sink your ribs, draw your sternum and your tailbone towards each other, could you allow your chest and your shoulders to roll forward and collapse, tightening through your front? Can you feel how we're lengthening through your upper back? And notice how much movement is coming from your head. Could you allow the muscles through your neck to just start to soften and release? So notice as you inhale and arch, can we create a lengthening through the back of your neck? Notice how that draws your chin in. As you exhale and your lower back lengthens into the floor and your breastbone draws towards your pelvis, notice there's a lengthening through the front of your neck as we tighten through your back, allowing your chin to jut towards the ceiling, as if we were slumped in front of the computer. So could you allow there to be a connection between your pelvis, your backbone, and your head? And then just make this the last of your movement just here. And slowly, can you bring yourself all the way back to neutral? Can you allow your brain to notice where neutral truly is as we've recalibrated this movement here? When you come back into neutral, let's just look at how we can release tension through your waist. So with your hips and shoulders just resting here in neutral, could you take an inhale to prepare? And then as you exhale, could you slide your right hip towards your right armpit and draw your right armpit down towards your right hip? Allow your arm just to slide along the floor. Allow your head to roll towards the right hand side. And then as many breaths as you want, can you soften everything through your waist, between your ribs, into your armpit, into your neck, as your head, your shoulders and your hips return to neutral. And then could you do the same on your left hand side? So inhale to prepare. And then as you exhale, draw your left hip and armpit towards each other. Let your head roll to the left hand side too, and allow your arm just to slide along the floor. And then slowly return to neutral. And could you then alternate this? So go between the two, keep it slow, keep it subtle. But notice the movement that's coming from your pelvis. Can you feel that your pelvis is almost acting like a steering wheel? There's that little turning action happening. Notice how your head is also rolling from one side to the other. So we're contracting and releasing lots of muscle groups here. Notice, for instance, when we contract and tighten your waist muscle on that one side, can you see that there's a lengthening occurring on the other side? And then as we switch sides, we're now releasing that contraction that we created on the one side. And now, what do you notice on the other? And then as you move between the two, on the next time you slide your hip and armpit towards each other, can you hold it in that contraction there? And when you're holding it there, can you stay there and then take 2 big breath cycles into the expanded, lengthened side? Let your brain notice the space created on that widened, lengthened, exposed waist and in between the ribs. And after you've done 2 lovely big breath cycles, slowly come all the way back to neutral. And could you do it on the other side? And notice as you go into the other side, there's a shortening on the one side as we expand and lengthen on the other. And then let your brain notice this space on the lengthened side, taking 2 big breath cycles into your waist, in between your ribs. Can you feel your belly expanding too? And then slowly return all the way back to neutral. And when you get back to neutral, just take an extra breath here in neutral and notice with your out breath, what else can you fully release? And then now let's create a small rotation through your pelvis and also for your head. So to begin with your pelvis, choose a side that suits you. But could you slowly just tilt your pelvis into your chosen hip? So just roll to one hip. Notice how your legs naturally follow. And then can you slowly roll all the way through neutral to the other hip? And just keep rocking back and forth. Imagine that your pelvis is a beer barrel. So we're rolling from one side. Let your brain notice where neutral is, so you may want to stop in neutral for a moment and then roll into the other side. And notice how your legs just naturally follow the movement of your pelvis. Notice the contact of your feet on the floor. Can you feel how it changes as we alter the angle with your pelvis? All this feedback is running to your brain. And as you continue to do this with your pelvis, could you start to roll your head in the opposite direction to your legs and your pelvis? So as you do this, do you notice every part of your skull in contact with the floor as you roll from one ear or one side to the other side or to the other ear? Can you feel the smoothness of your head like a ball on the floor? Can you feel as one neck muscle lengthens on the one side, the other side shortens? And then notice what has to release to create the contraction on the other side. Can you feel the difference between one side and the other? And as you continue to roll your beer barrel pelvis and your head, imagine it's a ball, the next time you tilt into one hip and you're looking in the opposite direction, could you hold that position there? Breathe deeply into your belly, into your ribs, into your chest, into your waist. And then as you exhale, slowly bring your head and your knees back to neutral with your pelvis. And then can you go the other way? And as you go the other way, can you do the same? Hold it there. Breathe into your belly. Breathe into your ribs, into your chest. Expand everything. Allow your brain to know what it's like to lengthen these muscles just here. And just allow this to happen a few more times on each side. And as you do, could you allow your brain to start to notice other areas expanding with an in-breath? So focus on one area at a time. Maybe it's the belly. Maybe it's your ribs. Could it be your chest? And just if you can, keeping your eyes closed as you do this, just to stay very aware inwardly of what's happening, or very somatic. And notice that we're creating that gentle spinal twist. And then can you make that the last movement on that side there? And slowly come all the way back to neutral. And as you slowly come to neutral, can you become sensitive and notice if the weight transfer is right through the center of your skull? And also notice, is it right through the center of your pelvis? Do you feel that there's even weight between both hips and through the center of your pelvis? So become very sensitive. Let your brain really notice the transfer of weight here. And then when you're back into neutral, just to recalibrate one more time here, could you take a nice inhale and arch, breathe into your belly as you tip your tailbone towards the floor, expanding through your front, tightening through your back. As you exhale, sink your belly, sink your ribs, draw your tailbone up toward your breastbone, lengthening and releasing through your lower back as we tighten through your front. And then as many breaths as you want, soften everything through your front. Come all the way back to neutral. And when you come back into neutral, just take an extra breath here. Breathe into your belly, your ribs, your chest. And with every out breath here, just take a few of these out breaths. Just let everything switch off. And then let's return to putting your hands on your ribs. And just notice as you breathe naturally, how does the quality of your breath feel now? How do you feel the movement compares under your hands to with your rib cage compared to earlier? And then could you place your arms by your side? And could you just do a few of those 3-step processes with your breathing? So could you breathe in deeply? Could you exhale slowly? And notice that silent pause. And just do a few more of these. Really allowing your nervous system to fully relax, unwind. Notice with every out breath, you just feel heavier. And then just make that the last of your sequence of breath work. And then just breathe naturally. And then could you lower your legs down to the floor? And as you lie there, could you just scan from the back of your heels all the way through to the back of your head? And notice, how do you feel as you lie there on the floor now? Has the impression changed? Do you still feel a heaviness in a specific area, or do you feel that your brain space has changed and you notice more of other areas? So whenever you feel that you really need that time to wind down and relax, please listen to this, or at least take that principle of the 3-step process. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly, and then create that silent pause. Do that anywhere you can throughout your day, just to wind down the sensitivity or the hypervigilance of your nervous system, and also start to just allow you to use the areas of your brain that are for focus, awareness and concentration, rather than staying in that stress response. And whenever you get the opportunity, try and make this a daily habit to just get onto the floor and spend time resetting your software, allowing your brain to recalibrate so that you work much more efficiently and effectively. Take care.